This is a recording of the debrief of Agent Villareal in regard to the Slaughterhouse Incident from April 20th, 2021 to April 21st, 2021. Please speak into the microphone clearly and state your name.
I'm Agent Cecil Villareal.
I am Agent Marcus, conducting this investigation on behalf of the Division of Anomaly Recovery into Incident 58493 in Sheboygan, Wisconsin.
Well, what exactly do you want to know about the slaughterhouse?
It is my understanding that you were the response the D.A.R sent in after the loss of Unit Alpha on site. I'm hoping you can shed some light on what happened to Unit Alpha and provide a professional opinion on how we should move forward dealing with this anomaly given your experience with it, along with your overall experience working for the D.A.R. I'm also hoping you can provide some context to the incident itself, since we've just had to purchase a large plot of land and remove all traces of the slaughterhouse from records.
Do you mind if I smoke?
Make yourself comfortable.
Slaughterhouse Incident is a massive oversight on our part overall. For months, people have been going missing who'd worked there. It wasn't until we got a phone call from our contacts in the Bureau on April 20th that the place even popped up on our radar. I mean, for Christ's sake, even the FDA sent in an inspection team to make sure there hadn't been any contamination in the food they were processing with human flesh. None of them found anything. No trace of the people who'd gone missing, as if they just fell off the face of the earth. So House 21 sent in Alpha Team to close down the site for a day and investigate. Gave them some sob story. There's something about a military test going on, and the entire 50-mile radius had to be evacuated for the day. The locals, of course, ate it up and gave them no trouble. Once the slaughterhouse was closed, Alpha Team moved in to begin their investigation. About 15 minutes into the investigation, the scribes and scryers of House 21 began clawing their eyes out and banging their heads against their confinement chambers until 15 of House 21's 45 scribes and scryers died from blood loss and cranial trauma. At this point, House 21 called House 1 for support. House 1 sent me.
And I can understand why. You're certainly familiar with this kind of work. After all, 23 years of working for the D.A.R is quite impressive, given that most recruits don't last more than 2 years. What were your initial thoughts when you arrived on scene?
When I arrived, the only thing I could think was quiet. Far, far too quiet. On average, the slaughterhouse processed anywhere from 250 to 500 animals per day. When I arrived, it was as silent as the nameless one in Baton Rouge.
Please refrain from referencing previous incidents.
Fair enough. Anyway, slaughterhouse was the size of your average warehouse, I would say. It had a large area for holding animals in preparation for processing, along with nearly an acre's worth of machinery used in said processing. There was, of course, a smaller office building attached to the main warehouse, which was used by management mostly. I began my initial inspection of the location. I started in the office building, looking into records and other information sources that could be of help in describing what was going on here. According to the surviving scribes and scryers of House 21, they described it as if there had been something summoned on location, which resulted in Alpha Team being KIA. I found no evidence of this whatsoever, which, on one hand, was somewhat relieving. On the other hand, it left me with a rather unsettling thought. House 21's Alpha Team had been one of the best recovery teams in the entirety of the D.A.R. which meant that either I was missing something very important as a clue to where the summoning could have happened, or I was dealing with a group of individuals who was just as well versed in combat and arcana tactics as our operatives that we train.
So what did you discover?
I'm getting there. I then began to investigate the holding area where the animals should have been. They were there, but they weren't alive. Honestly, it's a miracle I could even find the remains of Alpha Team. I know the place was a slaughterhouse, but this was something else. The carnage was deeply unsettling. The remains of Alpha Team weren't in good shape either. They were torn to shreds, with marks suggesting claws at minimum 8 inches in length, with bite marks of various sizes. I leaned up against one of the supporting pillars to try and catch my breath after moving the remains of Alpha Team to a space where they could be easily recovered. When I moved my arm, I noticed the blood on the pillar had come off and onto my coat, revealing a faint imprint, a foreign sigil carved into the pillar. I began looking at the other pillars and saw they also had the sigil carved into them as well. I immediately began placing protective wards in compliance with Protocol 39144750 onto said sigils and heard what sounded like screaming from the office building, followed by the roar of a thunderclap.
What did you find?
When I came back into the office, found every single door closed, which was odd given that when I had left, practically none of them had been. I went and cleared each and every room one by one, checking for any signs of a threat. I found nothing. The last room I checked was the office supply closet, which is where things went south.
What do you mean by that?
I'd been in the office supply closet before, but there hadn't been anything there to suggest there was something wrong with it when I went inside the first time. When I opened the door this time, I was knocked off my feet by a blast of extremely cold air and snow. When I got to my feet and cast a protective ward on myself, I stepped through, and well, I found myself at the top of Mount Everest.
How do you know it was Everest?
The plaque on the top of it that I stepped out next to was a dead giveaway. Besides, I'd been there in '96. I closed the door behind me after heading back into the office building. I then heard what sounded like shuffling noises behind the door and opened it once again. I found that the room behind the door this time was a large ballroom. It looked as if it had been prepared for a wedding. Plates, tables, and just happy people all spending time together. It was all there. I even got to see the happy couple carve the cake. I then closed the door behind me and ran test protocol 68493-A on myself to see if I'd been charmed or put into some form of trance during the process of placing the protective wards in the holding pens area. I wasn't charmed or put in any form of a trance. I opened the door one last time and found two figures inside. One was an androgynous humanoid with antennae and butterfly wings. The other appeared to have cat ears.
Cat ears?
Yeah, cat ears. I apologized for my intrusion and handed them my contact card before stepping back out and closing the door behind me. After this, I contacted House 1 and informed them of the situation, and they moved in to secure the site.
I see. So in your professional opinion, with what happened here, What steps would you recommend we take in order to properly secure the site?
I would recommend we place the immediate site under a time quarantine. Isolate the area and monitor it for any intrusions inside and out. Then I would make sure to restrict any and all access to it from the civilian populace. As for what do I think happened, well, personally, I believe Alpha Team may have opened the same door I did, but whatever was on the other side of it really didn't like the idea of being visited by anyone. It killed them along with the animals inside the holding pens before leaving. Ultimately, since the door keeps changing, we have no way of knowing for sure where the thing that killed them is from, or where it went, or hell, what it even is.
Okay then. Thank you for your time and compliance, Agent Villareal. That will be all for now. If the accounting board has any further questions, we will reach out to you for another interview.
Of course.
Audio transcript ends here.